Firstly, I have a number of guests and friends of public education here, and I'd first like to introduce my friends from Tallahassee. Mr. Andy Ford, who is the president of the Florida Education Association, is here with us this afternoon, along with our vice president, Joanne McCall, vice president of the Florida Education Association, along with chief of staff for FEA, Marty Schaap. Along with that is Sharon Glickman, who is the president of the Broward Teachers Union, BTU, and Calibra Jacobs-Reed, who is the interim director of programs. And we want to make a number of statements to you in support of what you've been doing, what the superintendent talked about. And we're trying to make all of our jobs a little bit easier by ensuring that we have a coalition of folks who are doing the same types of things. So Joanne will follow me right after my particular statements. And every year, the Florida legislature and the State Board of Education adopt new laws that school districts are required to follow. At best, they give the district too little to fund new mandates, and at worst, they provide no funding at all. In fact, while they ask educators to do more with no additional resources, they then have the audacity to blame teachers for failing schools. Mandating change without proper funding has an everlasting effect on our children's quality of education. Students only get one chance to make it through, and they should not be cheated out of an appropriate and equitable education. So let's look at just a few items that the legislature has cut, and they've been unapologetic. Student transportation is underfunded every year by between $200 and $400 million statewide. School building maintenance needs are estimated to be at least $1 billion statewide. And this year, they gave us zero. Technology needs in our schools statewide are estimated to be at $1 billion. Unfunded legislative mandates for technology-dependent programs such as online, state and local assessments, virtual education mandates, conversion to digital textbooks, and new electronic reporting have exploded. Teachers, students, and administrators need training and support to implement this type of technology. In addition to funding cuts, legislators have implemented uninformed and reckless actions over the past few years. Laws like Senate Bill 736 are so detrimental to teaching and learning, it's becoming increasingly more difficult to attract and retain education professionals in Florida. Teachers spend years and thousands of dollars to get their teaching credentials. They're continuously involved in research-based professional development to hone in their skills. Yet people in elected office that neither hold a teaching degree nor have ever taught a day in their lives would think that they know better. Teachers know that there is both an art and a science to teaching. Every single child is different. Adapting an educational strategy to help every child succeed is accomplished in the classroom by the teacher, not by a policy. Expecting teachers to follow a script is not an educationally sound practice. Expecting every child in a classroom to progress at exactly the same rate, at exactly the same time, is unrealistic. Children are individuals. They need our time and our attention so that they will be successful, regardless of their learning styles, their needs, their strengths, and/or their weaknesses. Time is precious in the classroom, and once a moment is gone, we can never get it back. Legislators have only one thing in mind for our students, and that's to pass a state-mandated high-stakes test. The FCAT costs hundreds of millions of dollars to produce and administer. Beginning with the first day of class, teachers start practicing and drilling so their students can pass a test in April. Ask any teacher or their student, and they'll tell you the FCAT test is making schools miserable places to be rather than a wonderful childhood experience. So let me be clear. Teachers have never been afraid of accountability. Tests have an appropriate place in the classroom. Teachers must assess their students' progress and learning. But the way our state has gone about the process of so-called educational reform and teacher accountability has evolved into a process that only terrorizes teachers and their students. Whole communities have been robbed of resources and labeled failures. Add to this all of the staggering costs of implementing Florida's controversial assessment and accountability system. With the passage of 736, school districts will be required to administer end-of-course exams for all courses not covered by the FCAT by 2014-15 school year. The estimated cost for these assessments is $1.5 to $2 billion statewide, with recurring annual costs estimated at as much as $1 billion. I know that our school board and our superintendent have worked diligently to cut expenses and become more efficient. But you shouldn't be put in that position every year. That's why we're here today, because I know that we have a supportive school board and a supportive superintendent with the will and the skill to make a difference. We're here to ask our community, our parents, our teachers, clericals, paraprofessionals, our security monitors to join us, as it is time that we tell lawmakers to cease and desist mandating any new programs or requirements unless they are appropriately funded by the state. Join us as we tell lawmakers to cease and desist the over-reliance on high-stakes testing, standardized testing, that demoralize our students and their teachers. Join us as we tell lawmakers that until a reliable, valid, and transparent system is in place, they must cease and desist using the current assessment and accountability system that labels schools, students, teachers, and communities. We want people to join us as we tell lawmakers to cease and desist the expansion of for-profit charter schools until they apply the same rules that we are required to follow. Lawmakers must cease and desist implementation of the current teacher evaluation system and performance pay plan. They need to develop and pay for a system that is valid, reliable, legally defensible. It is simply irresponsible to continue using a system that is so flawed. We're asking our school board and superintendent to stand together in Tallahassee with us and demand a school accountability system that will restore parents' faith in our public schools. We ask you to stand with us as we demand that Florida legislators adhere to the Florida Constitution, which requires that they perform a uniform, efficient, safe, secure, and highly effective system for free public education that allows our students to obtain the high-quality education that they deserve. If they don't, we will pursue any and all legal, political, and legal remedies available to us, and we ask you to stand with us. So here's the bottom line. Whether it's in Miami-Dade, Duval, Pinellas, Palm Beach, Liberty, or Jefferson County, our local schools belong to us. The students who learn in them, the parents who support them, the educators and staff who work in them, and the communities that they serve. It is time that lawmakers hear us loud and clear. We're asking this school board and superintendent to join us in Tallahassee to continue the fight that you've already started. Our superintendent, our board, through our chair's leadership and our vice chair's leadership, we thank you all very much for your efforts and your work. And I'm letting you know that there is a coalition, 140,000 teachers that are going to come down on this state and not only teach at the Promethean board, but close that door and become community-involved citizens that participate in the political process all over this state. It is time for us to take back our schools, take back our communities, and give it to the people it belongs to. That's the students and teachers who cherish these vessels, these institutions that we call public education schools. So I want to bring up Joanne McCall, who's our Vice President for the Florida Education Association, and she'll conclude our remarks. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Chair.
I am Joanne McCall, Vice President of the Florida Education Association, and as President Ingram said, we represent 140,000 members from Pensacola to Key West. United Teachers of Dade is our largest affiliate, of which we're most proud. And we come before this school board and this superintendent because we know that you understand what it takes to make a difference in a child's life. We know that we have had many, many unfunded mandates. We are not afraid of accountability. We are not afraid of testing. And the FCAT has been hijacked. We know that the FCAT was designed to be a diagnostic test and a tool for how we taught our students. And it now has become a high-stakes exam of how we're going to judge our schools, and we know that that's fatally flawed. I sat with the superintendent at the governor's task force. We talked about the standards, which we already know are the standards. We talked about that there have been 39 changes in the school grading system in 36 months. We know that that's not good for students. We know that that's not good for our public schools. And we have got to stand together to make our voices heard. It is critical at this juncture that we let the people in Tallahassee who are making these laws, who know very little about what it takes to educate a student know that we are no longer going to be silent. We are going to ask the superintendent to get his superintendents to join with us. We are going to ask the school board to get the School Boards Association to join with us and get all the 67 counties in the state and the 140,000 members strong of the FEA, of which about 13,000 are right here in Miami-Dade, to make sure that they hear loud and clear. Unfunded mandates are no longer acceptable, and that we have got to take back our schools. There is no trust and no value in the system, and they should not be doing things to our students when they don't know what's best for our students. It's always about accountability. It's asking those of us who teach our students how to make it better. Just ask us. We will tell you. We will partner with them to make it better. So we're going to ask you to join us and stand strong. We're going to ask you to be the leaders in this coalition building where we ask them to cease and desist. I know you're a thoughtful board. I know the superintendent is very thoughtful and caring in his comments. He understands, just like we understand, that public education is the cornerstone of our democracy. And without public education, we will not have a next generation. So we're going to ask you to think very carefully and very thoughtfully, and we would hope that you would sign on board with us to ask the Florida legislature when they start their session to cease and desist all these unfunded mandates, and so that we can take back our schools. 736 is fatally flawed. We know that. There's nothing great about 736. We all know it's a disguise to dismantle public education and to move to a for-profit system. And we can no longer let people hijack our state and do that to us. So we're going to ask you to stand with us, and I'm going to let President Ingram, you want to ask, or is that plenty enough? And that's where we are. So we thank you very much for your time and your indulgence, and we very much appreciate you allowing us to consolidate our time. We appreciate that very much. So thank you very much.
Thank you.